All right, guys, let's talk about meats versus sweets. We don't really bait with a lot of meat anymore just because it gets a lot of maggots. It draws in a lot of flies and bugs. The bears are covered in it. The bears smell like it. And it's just when you're sitting those bait sites, especially if you're doing a tree stand or maybe a ground blind, when you're sitting those bait sites, it is just gnarly, and I don't have the stomach for it. So, and then when you do kill your bear, like I say, it's got maggots all up its arms, and it's just nasty. Do we need meat? Yeah, I feel like throwing in some meat for snacks and just as a treat every so often, especially those bigger boars. They really need the protein and they really like that meat. But once they kind of shift to the sweets, we don't see them really hammering the meat as hard as they do maybe early spring or even in the fall. Meat is more important. But we always try to do a variety regardless. So we've got our sweets, we've got our fats, we've got our proteins and carbs. We really want to meet all those needs of those bears the best we can, because that's how you're going to hold bears on the bait. And when I say hold bears on the bait, not necessarily meaning those bears are gonna stay there until the bait barrel is empty, but they're just gonna keep coming and going. They're not gonna get far from those bait sites because they're addicted to what's in your bait. And a good variety, every bear is different, so a good variety is key to this. Now, I still know a lot of guys that they just use meat and they let it get rancid. They maybe put it in a barrel and let it sit out in the sun, and that is their scent, and they don't really have to worry about anything else. They pop that barrel open or they dump that bucket, and man, that's going to light up that whole canyon and really draw those bears in. It's just really personal preference. I think you can get away with both. You can bait with your sweets and your hostess and your breads and whatever. I think that's okay, but the variety is still key. So we always do about 80%, maybe even 90% of our variety mix, our bear mix, which has pretty much a good variety of everything. I mean, we've got nuts and seeds and peanuts and sweets and pretzels and all kinds of random goods in there. And some bears will key in on those items and other bears will key in on other items. So you got to kind of really narrow down what your particular bear is going after. And by having a good variety, you can meet those needs. If you're feeding just strictly sugar or just strictly meat, I feel like you're still handicapping yourself a little bit. Those bears are going to get tired of that, and you need the variety to get those bears to really hang tight. So I would plan on, if it was me and I was a new bear hunter and I wanted to try baiting, I would go 80% of your variety, you know, your breads, your sweets, your grains, and really any of your cheap baits that you can get for throwaway stuff that companies are throwing away or it's going to recycle or whatever. Use that as your main staple and then supplement in your variety. So that's where you can add in your bear mix or your Cinnabon bites or cookie dough bites or cookies or whatever. Add that stuff into those bait sites and increase that variety. Anytime you can increase that variety, the better off you're going to be and the more success you're going to have. If you're feeding just straight meat, it's high protein and you're going to get those big boars in, but they're still not going to hold. It's just, at least in our opinion, we haven't had the success with it. And then the drawbacks of the smell and all the stuff that goes with baiting with meat really just isn't for us. So we don't use much meat. Sometimes, like I said, I will throw in a snack or two. We save our leftovers throughout the year. We put them in gallon Ziploc bags and we'll throw those in. And it's just, it might be stroganoff or it might be some leftover chicken Alfredo or who knows. Throughout the year, we just get stuff that sits in the fridge and eventually it goes bad. It all goes in a little freezer, which is kind of our leftover bait. And we just throw those in as snacks and treats for the bears. But our main staple is the bear mix. We feed it's basically trail mix. It's got everything you could ask for in it. It's got your sweets, your fats, your proteins, and everything. And then we'll throw in a hot dog or a chicken breast or maybe some different, varieties of leftovers just as a treat and a snack for those bears. So when they come in, oftentimes we'll see different bears kind of digging out different things. But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, variety is key. Try this on your next bait site. I think you'll have a lot more success in holding bears there, and we'll see you on the next one.